Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast, sponsored by pennstate.rivals.com. I'm your host, Richie Schnyderite, and today we have a special guest. We have Jim Coyle of the Hoosier, and also Indiana Sports Beat Radio, to talk a little bit about Penn State's new defensive coordinator, Tom Allen. But before that, Jim, how's it going?
Pretty good, Richie. How are you, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm excited to talk some Penn State football in this new DC. So it's not official, I guess, technically. This is all just reported or whatever you want to call it, but it is like semi-official. But Tom Allen is going to be the new defensive coordinator of Penn State, pending some crazy surprise happening. But just give me your initial thoughts on that.
I think it's a great hire by Penn State. Pat Kraft, they have a good thing going there. James Franklin as well.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Kraft, a former football player at Indiana, I believe, but he's been an AD at other schools. He is just, he's a guy that I think that Indiana should have really looked at when they had an opening there. Nothing against Scott Dolson, who their current AD. It's rare that you have an opportunity where you have two guys like that to choose from, but Penn State has it going pretty well, and I think it's a great hire, and I think it's going to serve them well.
So I guess first off, talk to me about Tom Allen as a coach, as a person. I know you've gotten probably to know him pretty well over the past, 7 years, 6 years, something like that?
He's a great guy. He's going to be a great recruiter. He's going to fit into any program because he's such a good person. He genuinely cares about his players. They know that. They feel that. It's palpable. They play harder for him, I truly believe. And with him being just a coordinator, which I don't mean that to sound like just a coordinator, but without the duties of being a head coach and all of that, he will be able to focus more, and it will just bring that unit together. Not that they didn't have a great year last year defensively.
Yeah, of course. Now, he's called defensive plays before for Indiana as the head coach. I know we talked about it off the pod, but you said it wasn't the past couple seasons. But back in, 2019, 2020, they had, 39th and 20th ranked defense. Were those during the same times, or?
2017 and 2018, he called the defense.
Okay.
And I think that he did take back over, but he was kind of sharing the duties a bit. I believe he had a co-defensive coordinator there for a while, but he did under Kevin Wilson. He was the Indiana's defensive coordinator, so he's very, very used to calling that. And that was the thing Indiana was missing. And Indiana had that combination of Kevin Wilson and Tom Allen for a few years. I think they're a top 10 team because they had a top 10 offense. They just had a terrible defense until they got Tom Allen in. But Kevin Wilson was not here long enough for that to happen. He was fired. And ironically, Indiana's last two football coaches that have left Bloomington have both gone on to become coordinators at another Big Ten school, with Kevin Wilson heading to Ohio State as their OC back in 2017, and then, of course, Tom Allen now going to Penn State.
So now you talked a lot about the highs of Tom Allen. What went wrong, I guess, with him as head coach?
To be a head coach in the Big Ten is hard, and he did not have head coaching experience, and I think that was probably, and he's not an offensive guy. He's a defensive guy, and defense. Being a defensive coordinator is, I think, where he belongs. Not that he won't be a good head coach again someday, but I think he had focused so much on defense and his coaching tree coming up through that. He had been the defensive coordinator at South Florida. He had worked on high-octane defenses at Ole Miss, so he was a defensive-minded guy, and didn't really have the same going on the offensive side. And I think that is kind of where the problem lied for Tom.
Yeah, totally understand that. Now, he runs a traditional 4-3, I believe.
Yeah, he's got a hybrid. Sometimes it's like a 5-2-4.
Okay.
He's got a husky. It's done very, very well. And I think in 2020, Indiana led the country in takeaways.
Mhm.
So they were really a ball hawking team back then. They had some good players, but he's going to have even more talent to work with there at Penn State. And I think that it's going to be hard to improve on the defensive year that they had.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you go from there? Geez, they allowed like the fewest rushing yards in the country. But I think there are some other things that he will really focus on, takeaways, things like that, because take the ball away, you're doing two things. You're not letting the other team score, and you're giving your team more opportunities to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of an improvement this is for Penn State. Not that Manny Diaz wasn't doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Manny Diaz, I know Penn State fans kind of got a little greedy over the past year and a half, 2 years, whatever it was. He just has that aggressive style of defense. Now, is Tom Allen, would you kind of consider him in that same type of boat, or?
At times he can be, but not all the time. He's not going to be blitzing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That had a name on that one, and I still don't know who that is.
That's fine.
But we'll call back. Sorry about that. But
No, it's okay.
I think no is my answer, but he is at times, and I think that he's learned that a little bit more, that you have to take some chances, and there's no better learning lesson for him than this year's Penn State game.
Mm-hmm.
They did not take the chance on offense of going for a touchdown instead of kicking the field goal late in the game there, and they gave the ball back to Penn State. Penn State, of course, scores on that very drive, and now then Penn State's in the lead. So they played Penn State very well, and they have for the last couple of years.
Yeah. No, for sure. Now, it's a little bit of an odd question, but he hasn't coached position groups really that much in his career, mostly linebackers, and I think that was like twice in his career, 3 times if I'm looking at this correct. Is that would you argue that's his main position group that he's probably going to work with the most, or?
Probably so, just because that's your quarterback of the defense, and so that's where it all starts and the line is where it starts and ends. But those guys are so multi-dimensional. You have to ask so much of them. They have got to be tough enough and looking to cover the run, but also quick enough and athletic enough to cover the pass and play both positions well. And so that's why I think that he probably will. But he will be involved in everything.
So I want to talk about him as a recruiter. You kind of talked about it a little bit before, but how is he as a recruiter? I know as a coordinator, you're probably not going to do a whole lot of recruiting, but you're still going to have to be that figurehead or that closer a little bit.
I think he's a heck of a recruiter. If you can recruit to Indiana, you can recruit to any place. I mean, he's not going to have any problem recruiting if he's allowed to do that at Penn State. It will be an easier sell for him, but he is someone that is genuine, and that really comes across. I think that resonates with players. He is genuine about their opportunities, about their possibilities. He will resonate with families, with fathers and mothers. He's a high energy person, but like I said, he's genuine. He cares about his players, and it's palpable. It comes across.
Mm-hmm. More importantly, and this is more so a question for myself, how is he with the media? Because I've seen the press conferences. It seems like he's just got a lot of juice, whether it's the players, talking to recruits, even talking to the media.
He's always jacked up. He's just always jacked up. He's just that kind of guy, but he's very, very, very nice in dealing with the media. He's not a problem. He doesn't get snarky. He understands he's learned that this game is really morphing, and that everybody has to morph with it.
Yeah.
And whether we're talking about NIL or whatever the case may be, the sport continues to change, and Penn State's one of those players that's always going to be in the game, no matter how it changes.
Mm-hmm. And then I know I kind of asked you this before, but talk a little bit more about just him as a person and in general, I guess.
It's someone that Penn State is going to be happy to have out in the community. Somebody that you're never going to have a problem from. Not only that, though, Indiana was a place that they didn't have hardly any problems with the players, and that's that
unheard of in today's world.
very, very difficult to do because, first of all, you've got 125 guys that you're managing, 85 on the roster, and then all the extras. And that's a lot of kids. I hate to call them kids, a lot of young adults to manage. And the young adults are just young adults. But I think that the fact that they had very, very few problems was a testament to him. His personality kind of plays over to you. He really talks to these guys like they're men and treats them like they're men, and tries to give them the best pathway to follow. He wants to build young men in addition to building football players.
Yeah. So now he's also getting, I know I asked you this off the pod, but he's getting a $15 million buyout. Are you a little shocked he's just jumping right back into it? I know some coaches are like, hey, I'll go get a TV gig for a year. I'm sure BTN probably would have picked him up real quick.
Not at all, because especially, number one, it's Penn State. I mean, this is not App State or, a lower echelon school. This is, man, he's jumping right into the top level. So he's in a position that you probably don't want to turn down. Those kinds of positions don't come around all the time. And the money thing, yeah, if it's me, you're not talking to me today. I can promise you that. And it doesn't usually, those buyouts are mitigated if you get a new job. Well, this one's not. So it was a negotiated down buyout. Originally, it was supposed to be $20 million, but negotiated it down to $15 million, 2 payments of 7.5, I believe. But that is not changed from what is going on with his salary, that whatever he ends up getting at Penn State.
So you're telling me basically Indiana's got a big NIL slush fund, it sounds like.
Well, that's not NIL money. That's just
you hope they'd throw it to that.
They've got to find to pay.
Yeah, no, of course. I don't really have anything else for you. I guess the next one, I guess, would be, do you think he's going to get back into head coaching, or do you think this is a guy that could stick around at Penn State for a little bit, because they've kind of had this little cycle with defensive coordinator specifically of just bouncing back to the head coaching area or getting a first head coaching job like Brent Pry?
I think he sticks around for a while. I think that there's a lot that he can learn at Penn State under James Franklin. I think he'll see that, and I think that he will enjoy that learning. But there's also probably going to be a lot of winning, and winning is fun. Yeah. But he'll definitely want to be a head coach again. There's no doubt. I can see him heading to Florida. Not the school Florida, but the state of Florida, because he has a lot of contacts there, which is another benefit for Penn State. He coached high school football down there. He coached on the South Florida staff. But I can see him ending up somewhere down there again once he gets a better taste, of more experience, I guess I should say, of big-time head coaching, and he's getting that, what he did not get before.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a little tidbit, interesting tidbit for the sole fact that they recruit Florida just as heavy as they recruit Pennsylvania, basically. But yeah, I mean, going back to how's the Indiana fan base kind of feel about everything? I know you gave your opinion, but are they a little upset with Tom Allen, or are they kind of just like, all right, see you later?
No, it was time to go. But like I said, it's because I don't think Tom was ready to be a Big Ten head coach. Yeah, and it's just that he's too nice of a guy to, and that was one of the things. It was like, that's the first thing you'd say. He's a great guy, but the job is not getting done. Of course, a lot of guys have not gotten that job done at Indiana, so that's a hard thing to do. But also that this is like a win-win situation, it seems like to me, with Indiana picking up Penn State. That's a win for them. It's a win for Tom. But Kurt Cignetti has come in and been hired at Indiana and hit the ground running. And he has really re-energized the fan base. Things I put out on social media, I can just tell by the reaction from the fans, the likes and the retweets and all that. You can just see the level of difference, and it's high right now. And I think that it's going to be a win-win. I think this is going to be something that happens where both programs benefit. Penn State is going to be better for it. Indiana is going to be better for it.
Now, this isn't even Tom Allen related, more Indiana Penn State related. How happy are Indiana fans and the Indiana fan base that divisions are gone and they don't have to face Penn State every year or Ohio State every year? Or I know they have them on the schedule next year for Ohio State technically, but
Ohio State and Michigan both on the schedule next year. So the thing about getting out of the Big Ten East, so you don't have to play Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State every year.
Mhm.
It didn't last long because, like I just said, two of those are on there. In
Yeah.
addition to Washington being
Yeah.
on the schedule, so you're playing two teams. You're going to play two teams that are currently playing in the college football playoffs.
It's crazy.
And so it's never going to be easy in the Big Ten. Big
Mhm.
Ten did not get easier because they got away from the divisions. Although I am so grateful to see that happen because you get a little sick and tired of watching that East-West thing. Be so much
ridiculous.
disparity there. So it'll be a little more fun that way, and playing a multitude of different teams now. You can really, especially you got 4 additional teams, but that cycle is going to be much less.
Yeah. I'm sure you see the Big Ten West some years and you're like, wow, if Indiana was over there, we're talking an 8-win, 9-win Indiana team.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, it's Indiana lost 5 games last year that were 1-score games.
Mhm.
So that's those little things that make the difference to win. Indiana could have had a different season, and maybe we're not having this conversation.
Yeah, of course. All right, Jim. So that's really all I got for you. Any other Tom Allen thoughts before we kind of sign off here?
No, he's just. I think it's a great landing spot for him. Like I said, because he is very, very good at being a defensive coordinator. He's going to have great talent at Penn State. It's a lot easier to recruit to Penn State. So, man, he did a pretty a good job recruiting at Indiana as opposed to what we had seen before. So I think that Penn State fans are going to be very, very happy with this hire.
Yeah, for sure. And then last but not least, just tell everyone where they could find you on social media, on Rivals.
Of course, Indiana Rivals is thehoosier.com, keeping up with all things Indiana. And I host a radio show, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and you can find that on YouTube at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. If you're not in the state of Indiana, where you can listen to it on radio in Evansville and places like Fort Wayne and Hammond, Chicago, like that.
Oh, of course. Appreciate having you on, Jim. I'm sure I'll be catching up with you soon. But for me and Jim, that's another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.